Hey everybody, what's up and welcome back to the Starcraft 2 Own It Shack. It's David here bringing you another Master League Quest episode. This is episode 11 of Justifier's quest to get from Diamond into the Masters League, and that has been a quest indeed. Watch me play Terran against all sorts of adversaries, and today watch me literally, as you can see at the bottom right there, that's my hands. And that's my lovely green polo that I'm wearing. And that's my desk, that's my keyboard, and I'm going to just say this right off the bat, that's a brand spanking new keyboard, so do expect a ton of misclicks like the one you just saw in this cast, because that's what's going to be going on. Anyways, I really hope you enjoy this new format. I think that showing myself playing, like my actual hand movements and everything, is going to be pretty useful for some of you who might be curious about where I leave my hand, how fast I am, or just, you know, you just want to see how I use my hotkeys in general. Like I said, we'll be bringing you a full hotkey tutorial probably after exams are done, when I have enough time to do something really sick with it. And you're going to enjoy that for sure. But anyways, for now, enjoy this Terran vs. Protoss, this epic game. This is probably one of the most fun games I've ever played of StarCraft 2. It was so good. And I think that you guys are going to really enjoy it, especially being able to see my beautiful hands there. Now, one thing you're going to notice, I'm just going to say this right off the bat, that's a small keyboard. That's a SteelSeries 6 GV2, and I've got pretty dang small hands. So if you guys with your big monkey hands are complaining about low APM or something, trust me, if I can do it with my very tiny hands, I measured them before this cast. They're 17 centimeters from the tip of the middle finger to the base, just the starting at the base of the wrist. If I have the small hands like that, you can easily do it with your big hands. You can reach from hotkeys that I could never dream of doing. For example, just spamming 8S for SCVs. I can't do that. I had to make my new SCV build button because of that. But anyways, enough of the size of my hands. It's not really relevant to this cast in any way, but I do hope it's been, somewhat comic relief, as well as the killing of that probe that he was not paying attention to. But don't be fooled, he's a great player, trust me, in this game, it's really sick. Anyways, the opening you're seeing here is the 2 barracks, no gas opening by me. And basically what this is, it's just lets you get a fast command center while being a lot more safe than if you were to use a 1 barracks expand. Simply because a 1 barracks FE almost always dies to a 4 gate, it's very tough to hold off, and I've been facing 4 gators like there's no tomorrow lately. About probably 3 of my last 4 Protosses I faced have been, all-ins of some sort, and this kind of thing is pretty safe against that. You can get a bunker at your ramp, get a ton of Marines out in case of Void Rays, and the transition after this is to get a factory and get some siege tanks, and you're going to see how that works out pretty soon here. First thing you're going to want to do, of course, follow this up with an expansion, which is going down right there. Now, I will just say this about Metalopolis. This is a very wide open map, tons of different passageways to your base, and probably not the greatest for siege tank play. Now, me being the stubborn StarCraft player that I am, I will be going for siege tanks here. But now, looking at this again, I think that what would have been better is to get siege tanks with a ton of Hellions, so that I can abuse the mobility that these hallways provide. So just keep that in mind as you're watching this cast, for all you Terran players who are hoping to maybe copy a build like this. Anyways, as you can see, the expansion is about halfway done or so, and I will be getting my gas at this point. You saw I threw up 2 refineries at once because I really need fast gas, and it should be starting to mine just about now. I'm going to be loading up the Marines into the bunker. In the meantime, while I send that SCV out to scout once again, I did lose my scouting SCV, or maybe I sent him home. I'm not sure what happened exactly, but at any rate, I don't have vision of his base anymore. That's a problem to me. Another thing I suggest you consider, for all you keeners out there, is to build a barracks at the 12 o'clock base and float it into his base from there. It can be very effective. You're going to see anything that he might have on the outskirts, and you'll probably be able to make your way into the middle as well and get a good scout off. So anyways, the factory goes down when you get 100 gas, and the next thing on the menu here is to get a reactor and a tech lab on those barracks. But hold the phone, this is very important what I see here. I see a ton of sentries and a probe moving out. Now that probe didn't throw down an expansion, but it couldn't have been more obvious to me that he was trying to expand there. I'm going to explain why. First of all, a probe at a natural obviously means expansion. The next thing, tons of zealots and sentries. Those are very defensive units. It's a 3-gate expansion build for sure. That is exactly what you would see in a Protoss versus Zerg if you were going for a 3-gate expansion. Essentially what Protosses are doing now is using those Protoss versus Zerg builds against Terran, and that's what we're seeing here. So that's basically how I know what he's doing, and just by sending in a suicide SCV. So just keep that in mind as you watch. It's very important that you know what he's doing. And because of that, I'm like, wow, I have a way earlier expansion. I'm in an economic lead right now. My expansion's already mining while his is just now constructing, so that's great. So I'm going to be throwing down the Eng Bay at this point. That's just for turrets against DTs that he might transition into. Very easy to do off a 3-gate expand build. Probably not as likely though in this case, because I did see all those sentries, which cost a ridiculous amount of gas. But anyways, as you can see, indecision there. Decided on the starport in the end, for the sole reason of getting a Raven for point defense drone. Can be quite effective versus early game Protoss units. And now that the bunker's down there, I will be putting a turret beside it. And yeah, just getting that new refinery saturated. At this point, you don't need 4 gas, just get your 3rd, because look at this, my gas and minerals are kept pretty low right now. I would be harvesting a little too much gas otherwise. Once that starport's up and running though, that's a different case, and you're going to want a bit extra gas to get those really expensive units like Ravens and Medevacs. So, just my reasoning there. You're going to want to start stim as fast as possible as well. With that new patch, making it 170 seconds, it takes a long time, and you're going to want to get that started as soon as possible. Now that Marine was on a mission, and I'm going to explain what. Another thing that Protoss players have been doing against me is they will put a pylon on the outskirts of my base and then get a hallucination or an observer or some air unit, maybe even a hallucinated Colossus, and then warp in on my high ground while I'm turtling at the ramp. It is so annoying, so hard to deal with, and so I'm just taking all precautions by sending that Marine on the edge there just to make sure nothing like that's going to happen, because that is so devastating. You do not want them warping in when you're turtling like this. It's not good. It's not pretty. Don't do it. Ever, ever, ever. So, as you can see, still getting out a bunch of units. Gonna scan him and see, oh boy, double forge. That means he's gonna be going for a ridiculous amount of gateway units and robo units. Probably not gonna see any air at all. There was a Phoenix wandering around. Of course, there was a hallucination. Or maybe that didn't come yet. I'm not sure. I have no idea. But anyways, at any rate, I know that he's going to be getting a ton of upgrades, so what can I do to combat that? Well, I can take an economic lead if he's going to have the upgrade lead. At this point, there's really no way for me to catch up in upgrades. I need to quickly put an Eng Bay down, but with his Chrono Boost, he'll be ahead. There's no question about that. It's impossible for him not to be. Chrono Boosts are just too good. So, yeah, the Raven's now out. Going to make me feel a lot more safe, because DTs can be pretty good. It's a pretty good unit. Just a little tip for you guys there. It's actually quite good if you use warp prisms to drop them in your opponent's base. As you can see, I got the turret there, but against a turtling Terran like myself, it's going to be hard for him to get... it's going to be hard for me to mobilize my army and send it up there. And there I go, scanning again. Meant to hit combat shields there, but with the new keyboard, clicking has been a little bit of a challenge for me, so I did call down an unnecessary scan there, just as his hallucination expires. And anyways, I almost decide to move out here, don't I? But then I say no, I'm not gonna. What I'm gonna do instead is get a bunch of production facilities. As you can see, I just put down another barracks because my third base should be coming up soon enough. So I get 2 additional barracks so that I can quickly maintain my constant production once that third is floated over. And you'll notice the +1 attack from my infantry is almost done. And in order to stay on top of him with my upgrades, I should be getting an armory as well as another engineering bay to start dual pumping upgrades, as well as mech upgrades, which are so good against Protoss because of the splash damage that the tanks do. So anyways, I will be trying some drop harassment right now. Another reason that I wanted to get Hellions instead after, looking back at this game, is because they're so much better at this kind of thing than a Medevac is. They're way faster than Medevacs. Hellions do a lot more damage, way quicker to probes than infantry do, and they can get away a lot easier as well. So it's pretty much better on all fronts, and that's just my reasoning. Now you notice more upgrades are starting as those additional upgrade facilities are placed down. Also going to be putting this in a planetary fortress. Metalopolis is a very wide open place with tons of different ways to get to your base. There's no way you can defend that there's no way you can completely defend that if, you know, your opponent is attacking you because of all the different alleyways they can come from. So this drop is not going to be too effective. I know that there's no way it's getting out alive, so I'm going to take as many stalkers down as I can, and I get a decent amount, so not a bad thing. I also managed to see the timing of that expansion, which is, as you can see, later than mine. I'm still ahead of him economically, which is my goal after seeing those really fast upgrades that he's trying to get. Planetary is now up and can saturate that. Going to get gas first. As you can see, minerals are quite heavily building up right at this point. And another thing I'm going to point out to you guys is I have way too many SCVs right now. What I should have done was made less SCVs in favor of more army units. My army could have been much bigger at this point in the game. That's something I suggest you guys don't make a mistake of doing, because as my opponent pointed out after the game, I had 82 SCVs on only 2 bases, and it's not good. It's great when you have 3, but yeah. As you can see, more production facilities. Just got to keep on top of your mineral count. When you got all those production facilities, you need to be using them. As you can see, I do macro quite fast. I generally like to tap 5 AAAAA, 6 SS, and then E's for Hellions. Got all the standard units, and I scan ahead so I can siege up easily. And the Raven should be dropping 2-point defense storms. That's enough to tell him to get out. He knows he can't combat that. So, because I have the PDDs up, I can push in more with the tanks and siege up right below this ramp. He has the advantage though with the high ground there. So I'll try to poke up here. The tanks do a sick amount of damage, but you're going to see some really nice play from him. He flanks with those Immortals, absolutely beautiful play, and then he blinks right on top of the tanks with the Stalkers so that they deal tons of splash damage to themselves. And obviously his really heavily upgraded gateway units here are going to clean up the rest of my army quite easily, but because I've been macroing so hard at home, I have another army ready for him when he gets to me. As you can see, I also still have that Zelnaga watchtower, so I'm keeping an eye on that. And I've got more units coming out all the time. Gonna keep on top of my supply. Other factories coming up, so that's gonna allow me to get a bunch of tanks. I do throw up a Ghost Academy, of course. It's gonna be great to knock out his shields. And he can't engage this with the tank on the high ground and all this bio units. It's just not possible. He's got too many sentries at this point. But what he can do is push right up to my expansion, and I immediately pull those SCVs when I see that. And I do manage to, like the miracle at Dunkirk for you history buffs, get those right out of there and save them all. The only difference is I didn't use dropping boats that they did. But yeah, so now I'm in a bit of a pickle. As you can see, he's got units on the high ground. I can't really get vision, and he's taking out my CC, and that's a huge blow. I was ahead economically until he took that out. I don't really see what I could have done differently, except, of course, for pushing out with the siege tanks a bit more and making a nice arc so he couldn't have gone past like that. That's what I would have done differently. I'll also be rebuilding my base up there, and I will be just scanning to see that he's coming this way, and I can siege up on the high ground instead. Of course, a late siege is something you never want to deal with. This blink is pretty devastating here, and he cleans up a ton of my forces, but not before those siege tanks lay waste to his. Macroing at home once again going to allow me to have an army back here so that he can't simply just walk up on me and slaughter. And you're going to see the power of really good macro right here. If you even look at my minerals, you see they're quite low. And yeah, so he's forced to back out, and I stim up, and I'm going to punish him for that move. With my concussive shells, he can't escape with those units. And yeah, so I'll be taking out a bunch of sentries, a bunch of stalkers, and yeah, that's pretty much that's pretty much a good deal for me. So now I feel like I've somewhat evened this game up, except he has the better economy, so he can replenish faster. So what I'm going to do is double expand here. I'm going to expand back to my old third as well as that new base I put up. And I've got a bunch of tanks now, and they're quite upgraded. Not as much as his, but they still are pretty decent. So I'll be pushing up to try and take out that proxy pylon that keeps warping in those units. And that's a lot of SCVs. But as you can see, he's got Immortals now in the mix, and that's going to be tough to deal with. As you can see, I didn't have enough resources to support Ghosts at this point. Just stuck with the tier 1 bio in the tanks. Now, the medevac's giving me vision of that, and that's pretty important. He's forced to back out. Now, this is where I feel like I made a mistake. What I should have done instead was simply maintain that siege line so he couldn't have pushed. Instead, what I'm going to do here, like a moron, aside from not transferring all my SCVs, is I'm going to stand that marine up and be like, oh, the coast is clear. Why don't I just push up there, right on the high ground, where you can get a beautiful flank off on my units. Yeah, probably not the greatest idea by myself. Definitely not being the smartest player in the world, but I am still in Diamond. I'm not Master League yet, so I'm going to give myself some slack here. The other problem is you can see reinforcements sticking back there. Should have brought those up as well to hold that position. The units just aren't spread out enough, and with siege tanks you need to be spread, so it takes a ridiculous amount of time for an approach. And then, once again, denying my expansion, I'm going to unsiege and just try and deal with that, hawking everything to 3 and the tanks as 2. And I scan there and see, oh, he's going that way, so I'm going to try and choke him off here and force him through a ridiculously powerful siege line. So that's what I do, and I siege up just a tad late, and look at what happens. He blinks right on top of those tanks. A faster siege could have done way better, but look at the immortal count. The reinforcements were late as well, and he's just going to crush through this with massive amounts of immortals and zealots. Just look at the devastation he wreaks on my forces there. All the macro in the world is not going to save me at this point, and I feel quite embarrassed, actually. So I let out a ruffle in a good game. The caps lock was a mistake. But anyways, yeah, really, really fun game. Totally enjoyed playing this one. I wish all my games were this sick and not just a bunch of 4-gates, 3-gate robos, 4-gate robos, and other cheese. But anyways, yeah, so fun. So I'm going to leave this game. And just in case you're wondering, I actually asked this guy to practice with me after we are now friends. We're going to be doing some, scrimmage. It's going to be pretty fun. Pretty sick. And also another little bonus surprise for you guys at the end of this game. We're going to take a look at him. And Desolation, my opponent, is none other than a Master League player. Look at that. So I am finally getting paired up with Master League players. That is so encouraging. Means that I'm getting way better. That's just sick. I can't wait. I can't wait to make it in that Master League. Can't wait to see the single star. Still in Diamond, but I am getting a lot better. And once again, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the new format here. Any comments, any feedback about whether you like it or not, anything to improve is always appreciated. And I hope to see you again for another daily dose of Slaughterfest. Psych.